I'm going to be talking about science and art. And I was thinking in preparation for this talk, when did science and story and art come together for me for the first time? And I realized it really came together at the very beginning. I never thought about this question until I was preparing for this. And it was when I was 13 years old at the Baltimore Zoo. I had had an interest in science since I was in 4th grade, but the idea that this was going to be my career and that I wanted a PhD in science came at 13. And so this is not me, but very well could have been me, because they did make me dress up in these costumes, and I spent a lot of time talking to the public about the animals in the zoo and facts about them and endangered species. And in the course of doing this and sharing this information and sharing these animal stories, I realized that people had come to the zoo with these misconceptions about animals. And I remember asking the people who trained me, the professional zookeepers, shouldn't we confront these misconceptions head on? And they said, well, no, we have an agenda and a curriculum that we want to express, and so that's what we focus on. I thought, well, doesn't that just leave the people confused? Because they learn new information and they have this old incorrect information, and they, just battles it out in their head about what's right and what's wrong. So at the end of this experience, we had to do a project. And I decided that I was going to write a children's story. And so this is my first little experiment with story and art. I did not do the illustrations, by far the best part of the story. I just did the research and wrote the text. But that process of learning all the misconceptions people had about pigs, I fell in love with pigs that year and realized that they are really clean and they're really smart and we misunderstand them. And in fact, I wanted a pet hog to live in my house after I learned all these things that pigs had to offer. So that was my first attempt to communicate science to people with a product. And immediately I go to story and I go to art. This idea that Larry had, I think, was very much true about it spurring my creativity. And while I was here, I pioneered a new field of study. I didn't set out to do that. It just kind of happened. But I think it came out of that creative space in me where I was looking at the invention and adoption of marine conservation technologies. Now, as a scientist, I cannot give a talk and not show you a little bit of data. There's only 3 slides worth. I was looking at these devices, and marine conservation technologies are technologies that are used to protect species and their habitats. One of the ones that were the first to ever be invented is called a turtle excluder device. You can imagine kind of a charcoal grid from a grill, but just a lot bigger and heavier. And it sits in the throat of the net, and so when big things like turtles hit it, they're directed out of this kind of escape hatch, and then small things like fish and shrimp will just go through the bar spacing. So here's just a little video that hopefully will run. And you can see that big dark mass is a turtle. It's now hitting the grid. And since it can't go through those bars, it's going to be directed down towards this hole in the bottom of the net. And then the turtle is going to swim to freedom, which always makes everybody happy. Cool. Yay. The turtles escaped. So right now I want to do a little data collection of my own. And I'm going to show you 2 video clips. And I want you, while you're watching these video clips, to kind of note what your questions are, your thoughts, your emotions, your opinions that come to mind for both of them. And at the end of both the clips, I want you to call out to me what you were thinking, and we'll just kind of compare them. So let's go back to that first video. What was in your mind? What data did you record about your thoughts, the questions, the emotions, the opinions? Yes?
I found it interesting that I was able to notice the outline of the human form, which was making me think about, the distinction between human life and marine life, and what happens when the medium changes right into the human. Yes.
Okay, distinctions between human life, marine life.
So for the first one, I wanted to jump in the water and swim. I wanted to be a participant.
There's a marked difference about what you thought between these 2 videos, even though they're about the same topic. They're both about bioluminescence. So it's taking you into a different part of your brain. One wants you to get active, other one's setting a mood, you're feeling emotions about it. So the media that we use changes the conversation. One of the things that I noticed with the science dance that I did was that it really fueled people's curiosity. So folks who knew my work really well, when they saw the science dance, they suddenly were asking me all new questions they were looking at my work in a different way. And so I think, when just like this shows, when science and art comes together, it creates this wonder.